putting some money and effort up front always pays off later on. I mean, I think that's really what it comes down to. And trying to like skimp on some of those things can cost you later for sure. Commissions have always been negotiable. And I think that's the thing that people need to understand around this whole issue is there was never a set standard that everybody had to follow.
Step into the world of Colorado real estate with Brian. His journey began in 2007 with a passion for purposeful decision making. Beyond transactions, Brian aims to facilitate life-changing experiences for his clients, whether finding the perfect home or securing investments for future wealth. Join us as Brian shares his knowledge honed through navigating the complexities of buying, selling, and investing in Colorado real estate. With a focus on clarity and client needs, Brian strives to make every decision simpler and aligned with long-term goals. Beyond real estate, Brian's story reflects his life in Colorado, from his roots in Colorado Springs to his studies at CU Boulder and DU. When not working, Brian enjoys family time, Lego projects, board games, and exploring mountains. Don't miss out. Like, subscribe, and comment to join our community and continue meaningful conversations. Discover the transformational power of real estate and the joy of living in Colorado with Brian. And thank you so much, Brian, for being here today. It is such a pleasure to have you. And I would love for you to just dive into your journey, how you got here today, and then we can go a little bit deeper.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Dr. Caroline. Appreciate you having me on this. Super excited to do this with you and glad we could do it. So yeah, thank you. I've had some weird path to get to where I'm at now in the real estate world. I actually started out as an engineering job. I graduated college as an engineer and got right into an engineering company, great company, but honestly just never loved it. It was nothing that I was like, this is like I'm excited to go to work or anything like that. And so I'd always kind of looked for some different ways to exit. I don't know how else to put it, but like find something else I could do. And I started learning more about investing and reading some investing books, and that led me into real estate investing, and that was a part of it as well. But if I back up even before that, we actually bought our very first house right after we got married back in 2004, and we had to move, but 2008 happened, and we were upside down in our home. And so we needed to rent it out. And I, was young in my 20s, didn't know anything about, renting a home out, much less, I barely just bought it. And so I tell people I actually accidentally became a real estate investor without really meaning to. So we rented it out and we had some different things happen in there where we had to do some evictions and stuff like that. But long story short, over time, I really saw, hey, real estate's a really powerful investment if you do it right and you do it well. And so, I continued in my other engineering job for a long time, but I was like, hey, I really think I want to get into real estate at some point. I love business. I love what real estate can do. So I started reading a bunch of real estate books for fun on my commute, in and out from work all the time. And I just kind of nerded out on it. I like to just go all in on something when I get excited about it. So I actually got my license originally in 2007 to 2010. We had twins at the end of 2010, and I couldn't quite make the full jump then. So I actually stopped doing real estate, but we continued to invest and we continued to be in the real estate game, I would say. And so we ended up being able to do a 1031 exchange with that house that we moved out of. And we bought a fourplex. And then from there, we probably moved 4 or 5 times in our first 10 years of marriage. So bought and sold a lot of different homes. We ended up moving out of another home, renting it out. And then recently, just last year, I also sold it and did another 1031 exchange and bought a couple duplexes from that one as well. And so kind of a weird journey, but a few years ago, I was like, I really do want to give real estate a try again. I think we're in a better spot. Our investments had produced income for us every month. And so it was always my desire to get back into this industry and do it full time. And so enough things kind of fell into place a few years ago. It's been almost over three and a half years ago now, which is wild, where I was able to quit my job and just go cold turkey into real estate. And one of the big reasons I want to do that is one, I have the engineering background. So I love numbers. I love, analyzing things and like I say, nerding out on that kind of stuff. But two, we learned a lot of what not to do, what to do through that whole period. And I really wanted to be able to do that for someone who was where I was at that time, and being able to help them not make the same mistakes I'm making, but also teach them what real estate can do for you from the very beginning if you start early and how to make moves for long-term benefits, and to help you not only build wealth, but just have options. When you invest in real estate, it's not about getting rich quick. It's not about that. It's really about what it can do for you in the future. So, great example for me is when we not bought and rented anything out, I wouldn't have had that chance to then quit and do real estate full time where we're at today. So that was over a year, over 20 years of some real estate moves that finally allowed me to have options to be able to quit my secure job and then go into business for myself. And so my whole tagline, I guess you would call it, is real estate with purpose. Like I really feel like, a lot of people, don't know a lot about real estate and, are always looking like, hey, we just want to move or we just want to buy or we just want to sell something. But I really like to help people get a bigger vision of let's think about this for long term. If this is your first time buying a home, let's figure out, what do you want to do with this home in 2, 3, 4, 5 years, whatever it is. Do we want to turn it into a rental, or is this a step into your next home to upgrade? Really thinking about that from a bigger picture and more advisory role so that you don't have to make a lot of mistakes I made, but also hopefully put you in a better position, in the future.
Well, I love it. I'm just like taking all that in because I think there's so much to unpack. But I think it really is that tagline, real estate with purpose. And that's how you've been throughout your journey, all the mistakes and the things that you've learned in 20 years of really that first step that you took in order to help other people, but starting with yourself and investing and learning the ins and outs and what made sense for you. And I do think a lot of it has that one decision changed the trajectory of where you are today because you
Yeah.
decided to look at the bigger picture and helping others do that. And I'm curious because of your journey and making those purposeful, important decisions, and you started doing that with your clients and being able to
Yeah.
help them balance that emotional and practical aspects of real estate transactions. Because one of the things when I first met you, we were talking and you were telling us about your journey and how you really are helping people see the bigger picture, seeing that, okay, does it make sense to buy right now? What is the purpose behind it? How do you navigate those conversations with your clients? I'm just curious.
Yeah, and that's a really good question. It's actually one of my favorite conversations to have when I first start with someone, is a lot of people are like, well, here's if they're trying to buy a house, for example, it's like, here's how many beds I need, here's how many bathrooms, square footage, and here's the location I want to go. And for a lot of people, and when they work with some agents, that's good. And they just kind of go from there. You know what I mean? Like, okay, awesome, sounds good.
Yeah.
So I actually have like a whole questionnaire I fill out with them and questions I go through. But I really just I do actually share my story. I say, here's been my journey, and here's what I wish somebody would have gone through with me. And so I want to go through this with you. And I think that really kind of helps them open up to go, oh, like maybe there's some things we should think about. Because the truth is, we all know this, if you don't know to ask a certain question or you don't know to think about something in a different way, you're just not going to do it. Not wrong. It's not, it's not because you're trying to do something. It's just no one's ever never helped you through it. And so, especially like on the buying side, if I have some like sayings that go along with my real estate with purpose, the first is buying intentionally. Let's be really intentional with what we're buying. And so that we can make sure that what we're looking at is going to be a good fit for you for what you need now and for later on. And so I really dig into one, what do you want to do with it long term? You have any interest in investing? It's not for everybody, so we don't force it obviously on anyone, but if that is an interest, like let's talk about what that can look like because you go buy your first home, you may not be buying the nicest home because you're going to maybe do a few updates and then have it be good enough to be rented out, and then you can move on to your next home. But also, I mean, there's so many factors now that matter in a home, especially with more work from home. You have kids, family, lifestyle. So I really dig into that too, where it's like, hey, what do you need to use this home for? What does the layout need to look like? Do you need an office? Do you not? Where does that office need to be in the home? Where do you want your kids compared to where your bedroom is? I mean, just all those things to think about. How important is entertaining, or what do you need for a backyard? So I really dig in deep to all of that to see, let's narrow this down as much as possible so we can get you as close as we can and then have a plan for knowing that, hey, this is a great home. And when we find it, then we can jump on it. And so that's a big piece of it on the buying side. When I also look on the selling side, probably one of the only agents that's going to say, if you considered renting this out, if you considered not selling, one of the things I say about that is we got to sell meaningfully, so let's not let's just not jump to we have to sell because that's just what you do. Let's see if there's an option for you to keep it. Let's see if there's some other loans that might be good for you. Maybe you can get a HELOC or explore some options. Let's look at what you could rent the place for and just explore it. It's not always going to work out, but at least we've taken the time to see if it's even an option and if it would work for you. And if not, great, then let's figure out how to sell this in the best way possible. And so one of the things I'm part of a team that has a really innovative way to sell homes that's outside the traditional way of selling your home. And it's honestly broken. It actually doesn't work in the seller's best interest. So we've come up with a new way to do that that actually helps the sellers define the terms that you're gonna sell for, creates a lot of interest and demand for your home, and ends up typically selling your home that in one weekend and all that. So it's another meaningful way to say, okay, if we are going to sell and we're not going to rent, then let's do it in a way that works for you. And so that's the other conversation I have with them is we walk through all those different options. And then the third thing is, when it comes to investing, really investing, I say invest powerfully. And so that conversation that I have with them, most people, if they've ever tried to get into real estate investing, there's so many nightmare stories. I'm sure everybody's heard, like, this is
Yeah.
the worst thing ever. I lost so much money doing this. I've done this and that. Again, you have to be very intentional about how you buy an investment property and really doing a good, thorough analysis, running all the numbers, making sure they're conservative and doing it well. And if you can invest well, that's a powerful way to invest. And so I walk through my failures and our things that we've done wrong, and then when we've done it right, how it's worked out. And so when I have a client that's like, hey, I want to invest, I'm very transparent. Like, here's what it's going to take, here's what it's going to need. It's not, oh, I'm just going to go buy a rental home and now I have passive income. It takes work, but better to just walk through that, know exactly what to expect, and then have the knowledge that you need to make the best decisions moving forward. Because I really think anytime you have clarity around all of this, and information and knowledge, then you can make the best decisions. Nobody wants surprises later on. And so my job is to give my clients as absolute much as we possibly can to help them and then advise them, say, here's what could happen if you choose this, here's the risks and opportunities. Choose this, here's what could happen. But at least and you're not going to go back later and go, why did nobody tell me this? Why did we not talk about this option? If only I'd known. That's really what I want to try to avoid for anybody I talk to.
Yes, I love how thorough you are with your clients, like starting with the questionnaire, really getting clear on what they're wanting, but also the transparency of, okay, well, maybe it isn't the right way to like sell it. Maybe it's renting it out, maybe being able to look at every option and seeing what is best for each homeowner because, every real estate broker is different here in Colorado and across
Yeah,
the country.
absolutely. Right.
And I think it's just really valuable that you do offer that knowledge so they can make an informed decision of what's going to be best for them, their family, or just themselves or whatnot. But I'm curious because I know it's been a journey of ups and downs. So what were some of the obstacles in investing that you've realized that you really help your clients see, just like some of them?
Oh man, that's a great question. When we first did it, it was just like, okay, we just go find a tenant and let them rent it out, and then we're good to go. We one thing that we tried to do is self-manage our property, and that was very challenging. We didn't know how to vet a new tenant well. We didn't know how to do a background check or look at their history or anything like that. And so, you kind of based it off of, well, they seem pretty nice and they'll probably pay the rent. So if we want to help them out and we do that. And then it just kind of fell apart. So I think one of the big things that we realized is getting a really good property manager makes a big difference. A lot of people think, it's just an expense I don't need, but they've got their systems in place, they have their tools in place, they know how to really vet tenants well, how to get the rent you need. And then if there are any issues that come up, they've got contractors that they can call on that they have relationships with and probably discounted rates to help you in your investment. So I think I wasted a lot of time, two evictions, unfortunately, and it was painful. You can't avoid that stuff completely. There's always risk when you invest, but I think there's ways to minimize that. And had we known that early on, that would have made a huge difference for us.
Oh yeah. Oh, I believe it. Just even thinking about it because we eventually want to get a rental property and be able to like outsource all that stuff. But it's just good to know
Yeah,
these things because, well, I know who to come to now when that comes up. But I think it's
absolutely.
important to know. You don't always know what you're getting yourself into because you've never experienced it before. It might be the first time, but I think it's important to have somebody that is guiding you in the right direction, knowing, okay, avoid these mistakes because it might cost a little bit more upfront, but it's going to save you so much time, energy, and heartache of like not having to
Right.
go through certain things that you don't want to go
Well,
through.
it's so true. Yeah, exactly. I mean, putting some money and effort up front always pays off later on. I mean, I think that's really what it comes down to. And trying to like skimp on some of those things can cost you later for sure.
Oh, absolutely. And I'm just curious, this is kind of not out of left field, but maybe a little bit. I'm curious
Yeah.
with just everything that's happening in the real estate market nowadays and with all the
Yes.
changes that are happening with commission. I'm curious, what are your thoughts on that?
Oh, it's a great question. I think what's unfortunate is there's a lot of misinformation. And I'm not trying to say that it's just like a sleazy real estate agent that's like, hey, here's my value. But I think, what happened with the commission, this isn't talk bad about anyone or anything, but unfortunately, it's just people weren't being transparent and really communicating well with their clients about exactly how commissions worked. Is really what it came down to. And so the big lawsuit with NAR is that, and actually a bunch of brokerages, was that sellers were selling their home and they didn't realize they were helping to pay for a buyer's agent commission. And so, they come in, a listing agent would say, hey, I'm going to list your house for whatever number. And then they thought all that money was going to that agent and didn't realize that it was going to be also paying for the buyer's agent as well. And so I think it just comes down to, my thought is transparency is never a bad thing when you just walk through it all. So many people are afraid to like share about, oh, like here's how much I'm gonna make, and that they're gonna see that and think I'm making too much, things like that. Like, you know, if you have it all out there, you lay it out, that's always better than trying to hide something. And so the whole commission thing, as agents, we can make really good money doing this, but it is a lot of hard work too. And there's a lot that really good agents do for you. And I think again, it just comes down to, being like when I meet with a seller now, I say, look, here's the value. Here's, now what's happening is, sorry, I'm going to back up a little bit.
Yeah,
What's
yeah.
happening is now that these things have come out and these lawsuits have come out, the settlement is sellers like in the MLS are no longer required to say, here's how much we're going to offer a buyer's agent anymore. It doesn't mean they won't be able to offer, to help pay for a buyer's agent commission. They're just not going to have it be required that you have to have it in the MLS of what you're offering. So it's basically coming down to you can pay your seller's agent and then you can decide if you want to offer anything for a buyer's agent. So my conversation with sellers is, do you want to do this? And let's think, of course, nobody wants to give away any money.
Okay.
Everybody wants to keep as much money as possible, right? But the truth is, if anybody's going to buy a house, we know it's really expensive, right? It's really hard, especially now. We have higher prices, higher rates than we've had historically. And so, if you think about from a buyer's perspective, I'm coming in to buy a house, I have a down payment, I have closing costs, and then I have to pay my buyer's agent on top of it. It's already hard enough without paying a buyer's agent. So how likely are most people going to be able to buy your home if we don't offer some sort of commission? Now, still completely up to you, but you just need to understand the implications and why we would want to pay for a buyer's agent because it actually helps them buy your house and get into it and helps you reach your goals to get to the next thing. So we have the conversation. I include my sellers now. I say, let's talk about what we want to do here. It's not, here's what I do, here's how much I'm giving to the buyer's agent. It's let's have a conversation. On the buyer side, same thing. I talk to them. I say, look, if you can pay, my commission percentage, great. If you can't, let's talk about, if we come across a home that isn't going to offer, what I need as far as my commission, do you want me to show you those homes or not? Or do you want to try to negotiate with the sellers and see if they would cover some of it? And I have the exact same thing. Let's have the conversation. I don't try to assume anybody wants to do one thing or the other. Let's just put it out there, be transparent, and then we have a good plan going forward so we know what we want to do.
Absolutely. Communication is key. Just being on the same page, being able to have
Yeah.
everyone there that's involved versus, I mean, I used to do family therapy. So if like the whole family was there, a
Oh,
lot
yes.
more could have happened versus just the individual. So that's kind of what I
Right.
was picturing, everyone around the kitchen table talking about it. Right.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely.
But I'm curious,
Yeah.
with everything happening, what do you foresee maybe in the next year or so for the real estate market with just all these changes happening with the lawsuit and everything from your perspective?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a really good question. I think honestly, I think it's a good thing. I'm not worried about it. I don't think it's a bad thing. if again, it brings transparency, which is good. And so what I foresee happening is I see some sellers saying, we're not going to offer a buyer's commission. And that's okay. That's their right.
Yeah.
Commissions have always been negotiable. And I think that's the thing that people need to understand around this whole issue is there was never a set standard that everybody had to follow. There was things that had typically happened or, were common, but it doesn't mean that's what had to be. So I think we're going to see some transparency there, and we're going to see, sellers now really deciding, hey, I only want to offer a certain amount. Maybe it's 2% or 2.5 or 2.8 or 3 or whatever. It actually brings more freedom for the sellers to decide what's best for them. So I think that's a good thing. Same with the buyer side, they're going to say, hey, I can't afford, your commission, so we can only look at homes that are offering what the sellers are offering that commission. I think that's good. But I really think in the end, that's really, really good is it's going to force agents to provide value to their customers, which is desperately needed. And I think the really good agents they're going to be fine, and that's the way our free market works. That's how, entrepreneurship works, right?
Yes.
Is if you're good at your job, you provide really good value to your clients, and then you'll be fine, And I think it's going to weed out in any industry, right? I'm sure you've met so many people. We are just talking about this before we started, that you meet a ton of different people in all these different industries,
Yes.
and it's not all doctors are the same, not all mechanics are the same, not they're not, so you have to figure out how am I going to provide my value, and if you provide that value, people will want to pay for it and it'll be worth it to them. And so I think it's going to weed out some agents that maybe got into this as like a hobby or, aren't taking it super seriously. Nothing wrong with that. I think it's overall a good thing for the industry because it helps us to make sure that our clients are taken care of and they're protected.
Absolutely. I mean, I couldn't have said it better. I think it's that value piece. No matter what industry you're in, it's being able to provide value over everything because I believe knowledge is power when applied. And just like what you were mentioning too, is having an informed decision when somebody is about to purchase a home, whether it's an investment property or just another property for
Right.
themselves, whatever it may be. But it's just having that knowledge so they can really make a clear decision. And that's what I experienced from you is that transparency. Just like I feel like I read people pretty well very quickly. And I think it's important because it's one of the biggest purchases, or if the biggest purchase somebody is going to make when it comes to their home. It's their place
Right.
of sanctuary, basically. That's
Yeah.
how I view it. And I'm
Yeah,
curious
absolutely.
if somebody does want to get into real estate now, even though the market's switching, changing all the things and like providing value is a key element. What do you think is something that people might not realize when it comes to real estate? Because there's a lot of people that want to get into real estate. They might see the shows on reality TV, all of those things like, oh, I'm going to be a multimillionaire right away. What are some of the things that people might not realize when getting into real estate? Today's episode is sponsored by the Start Here Conference.
Hey there, fabulous folks. Welcome to the Start Here Conference, where the fun begins and success stories unfold.
Yep, you heard it right. We're here to kickstart your journey with a big dose of energy and a sprinkle of magic.
Picture this, a place where inspiration flows, connections bloom, and dreams take flight.
At Start Here, we're all about keeping it real and having a blast while doing it.
No stuffy suits or boring speeches here, just good vibes and endless possibilities.
So whether you're a seasoned entrepreneur or just dipping your toes in the water, there's something here for everyone.
From incredible breakout sessions to a dance party that'll have you jumping out your seats and showing us your best moves, this event will have it all.
And hey, did we mention the food? Delicious bites and refreshing drinks to keep you fueled up and ready to conquer the world.
So what are you waiting for? Grab your ticket, bring your sparkle, let's make some magic happen at the Start Here Conference.
And now back to the show.
Are you talking on the investment side or trying to become like an agent?
Becoming an agent.
Becoming an agent. Yeah. Really, really good question. I thank you for asking that because I think you're right. There's all the glitz and glamour of these agents, they're out there on the TV shows and selling these $1 million homes and apartments in New York City, all this stuff, right? I think the really important thing is to know is if you're trying to become a real estate agent, the best analogy I have for it is you got to go to school, you have to go get licensed, there's some requirements for that. And just because you go get your license doesn't mean people are going to line up to use you. There are so many real estate agents in this industry in Colorado alone, and it's a lot of hard work. You have to do a bunch of hard work that you may not want to do. The fun part is going out with clients, showing homes or listing a home and getting offers and, working outside of things. The majority of what I do is just providing value and trying to find people who are ready to do that, and I think the biggest thing that anyone should know if they want to become a real estate agent is I highly, highly encourage you to talk to as many people as you can and just get a really realistic idea of what that's going to look like. Maybe shadow some people, maybe go and talk to some different brokerages and say, what does it really take for me to do this? And find people who are going to be really real and honest with you, and share the good and the bad, all that kind of stuff. And then know it's just going to take time, like anything, there's no overnight success unless you can grind 24 hours a day. You might get there. You just have to do hard work. And I think you have to be willing to take risks and do things that make you uncomfortable. It's one of the things that I've really learned in my first 2 years. I did a lot of things that just really didn't produce anything for me. It was not, what I would call money making activities, if that makes sense.
Yes,
It's
very much so.
all the fun stuff like, hey, let me get my business card just right, or let me get, things like that. But in this industry, it's all based off conversations that you have with people. So you have to be talking to people, and that can be hard and scary and exhausting sometimes. But it's the consistent work when you start putting that in there, do the things that actually lead you to business. That's what gets you success. And so you have to know what that is going into it. And so I think that's one of the big misconceptions, when someone's looking at getting into real estate, is they see the end result, but they don't see the years of work that went up to where that person is now.
Oh, absolutely. I'm glad you brought that up because I think that translates to every industry of just being able to have income producing activities versus the fluff
Yes.
of, okay, my website needs to be perfect, my business card, this,
Yeah.
that, versus
Right.
actually building relationships, talking to people, connecting, getting your name out there and letting them know whatever industry it is. But I think that's something that's so valuable across the board. And I'm curious because I know a lot of entrepreneurs that are wanting to invest in real estate. What were some of the things in the beginning that you learned that were really beneficial, or maybe even in the midst of it that you learned over time that was beneficial when it comes to real estate investing?
Great question. I think one of the best things is to embrace the mundane, non-fun parts of it. And so what do I mean by that? Like the fun part's getting the money at the end and making money, right? But there's a lot that goes into it. When I talk about you really need to have a good, solid analysis on a property to see if the numbers make sense, like dig into those numbers. And it can be kind of grueling sometimes to really, work through it. But, you look at things and let it be okay for a deal to not be okay and to move on to the next one. So, when you're looking at numbers, there's a lot of things to factor in. There's like bad debt. What's bad debt? It's basically if you have a tenant that leaves early or maybe they get evicted and it's money you're not going to see later because they didn't pay their rent. You have to factor that in. You got to factor in vacancy. You got to factor in things that aren't fun to think about, of like doing a turn, carpet cleaning, things like that, maintenance, a lot of things like that you want to put in there so that just in case it's kind of worst case scenario, you just let those numbers speak for themselves. Emotions can be deceiving, but like, so it's exciting. It's exciting. Oh, yeah, I'm going to go buy an investment property, but let the numbers help you make that decision and then trust them. They don't lie. That's the best part about it. And so you do your great due diligence, you have everything set up, and then be patient, right? Be patient and let it, the right deal, the right property come along that then finally fits the numbers. Don't get impatient and want to jump into it because that's when mistakes get made and that's when you start to lose money. And so I think that's a big piece of it. Also, have a really good, solid group of people that you can bounce ideas off of and bounce properties and just learn. Learn as much as you possibly can, read as many books as you possibly can. You can't be too prepared to buy an investment property. You'll never be fully prepared. So at some point you have to take the leap. But if you're careful about it and you do everything you know to do, and you're patient, then that's when you can win and that's when it really works out for you.
Oh, that's so true. I think it's just education, right? The more we know, the more we're able to have that informed decision and not make mistakes. I see that with like Bitcoin. We're really into Bitcoin.
Oh, yeah,
I know your thoughts on
absolutely.
it. But it's the same concept. A lot of people see it go down.
Right.
They're like, sell, sell. when it's like, no, just wait, have patience, it'll go back up. And
Yeah.
like with real estate too, everyone's like, well, when do I buy? When do I sell based off of the market? But I think it's having that patience and knowing when it's the right time, having somebody who is a professional that's been doing it for years guide you in that process. Because there's a lot of times people are like, well, I can just sell my house myself or buy my house myself. What are your thoughts
Yeah.
around that?
Good question. Yeah, and absolutely you can. You don't have to have an agent. You don't have to have someone do it for you. You can sell, it's your property, right? You're welcome to do what you want with. And I think, it just comes down to, again, how much time do you have to do things yourself? Why do we hire anybody to do anything for us? Why do we hire a doctor to operate on us?
Yeah.
We could probably operate it ourselves, but they know more about, the ins and outs and things like that. That's the extreme example. But I hire a car mechanic because I don't know anything about cars. And two, I don't want to. I don't want to take the time to figure it out. I just don't care. I'd rather pay someone to do that. And so I think again, it comes down to the value and agents, we'll just be real honest, call it what it is, a bad rap, right? There's been a lot. It's because unfortunately it's pretty easy to get your license, and because not everybody's all the same, there's just different levels of experience. And so what happens is there's a lot of different things that people feel like they got taken advantage of, or my agent didn't do anything for me. I hear that all the time. And so I think it's super important for anybody, if you are thinking about using an agent, it's really, really good to interview them. You need to work with someone who you can trust and you really do feel is going to provide you that value. Call their past clients, look at their reviews, whatever, like do some research on them. It's really, really worth it because the truth is there is a lot of good agents out there, and an agent, the way I like to explain it to most of my clients is, hey, this is your ship. I'm just going to captain it to get it to where it needs to be. So I'm going to say, hey, I think we need to go over here. We're seeing some rough waters, or as an experienced agent, I've seen things, I've gone through them with many people. If you're trying to sell your home the first time, you're going to have to spend a lot of time researching and thinking about, what to do as things come up. There's a certain process that you need to go through. And again, you can do it, but it's one of those things that I do this all day, every day. I know exactly, I know the contracts inside and out. I know how it works. I know how to negotiate. I've got, you're not just paying for me to send you a contract or fill out a contract, or things like that. You're paying for all the experience I have as well to navigate anything we might come up against. And help you through it, help you advise you around it, and so that we can get you where you want to be. So I think that's really the value that an agent has, and that's something that there's many many things an agent will do behind the scenes. They don't always communicate that with their clients, and so I always try to say, hey, here's what I'm doing, here's what's going on, and I think ultimately it comes down to don't just go with a friend, don't just go with somebody that you just get referred to. I actually encourage everybody, and like if you should interview me, you should interview others, because this needs to be a really good fit
Yeah.
with really good trust, because we're going to be together for a few months here. And, we can't have this contention or you feeling like you can't ask me questions or an honest conversation if we don't have that trust going forward. Like you said, Dr. Caroline, these are big decisions. These are big financial purchases and sales and things like that. Man, is it worth it to find someone who's really going to have your best interest in mind and take care of you and that you feel like is going to get you there.
Absolutely. It's building that trust is so huge, and having the communication, being transparent. It's a relationship and you don't want anyone to like not it go south or anything like that. But I do believe the reason we hire professionals is in order to make things go faster. And so we pay for the
Right.
speed and also the
Yeah.
knowledge base and the experience. And as an entrepreneur, it's sometimes hard to delegate those things because you're like, oh, well, I can just do it myself. But there's so many other
Right.
things that are focusing on the zone of genius versus all the other things that you might have to learn. Yes, you can learn it.
Like
Of
that.
course, you can learn anything. But I think it's looking at the value piece that is so key, and just the community that we play a part in, especially in real estate, because what is your thoughts in particular for Colorado? As you see the real estate landscape evolving here in Colorado, it's been built up a lot in the last 20 years. I'm sure you've seen a lot of changes as well.
Yeah.
What role do you believe real estate professionals play in shaping the communities and the lifestyles?
Oh man, that's a really good question. I think, Denver's interesting because it used to be pretty reasonable place to come move to, and And as prices have gone up, it's gotten more expensive, and all those things. But where do real estate agents, I think it's really important to have an it who really knows the area well. I think I'm realizing that more and more of, someone who, I grew up in Colorado, I grew up in Colorado Springs. I lived in, went to college in Boulder, lived in Golden, Westminster, Parker, all over. Now I'm in Castle Rock, and so I've been all over. I grew up around this whole area. And I think just having, someone who understands all these areas is really important. And I think, your question, how do real estate agents, how are they going to shape communities and things like that? Agents see a lot of the city that most people don't see, and a lot of their communities that others don't see because we're in and out of all these homes and things like that. And so I think agents more than ever are really going to have to evolve, into being more advisory roles and really providing knowledge from all that experience that they're getting across all these different areas that they're going in and out of and people they're interacting with. So I think, real estate agents really become this hub for communities if done well and done, humbly, I would say, where now because I do have exposure to kind of like you, Dr. Caroline, exposure to a lot of people that are in a lot of different businesses. I meet with so many clients in different businesses. They own their businesses or they're employees with different companies. So now I become a big connector of people. And when someone says, "Hey, do you know a good dentist in this area?" But no, I don't know, but I know so and so lives here, and let me go talk to them. And I can start help shaping, getting people connected, building that community so they don't feel like they're alone. I have a great example of this actually. So I had some clients moving from Arizona and they bought a house in Aurora. And then I had some other clients, they're trying to buy their first home. They live in Lakewood, but they both grew up in Aurora. And so I went to them and I said, "Hey, I got some clients moving to Aurora. Can you give me some insider spots of like where's some great places for kids to go in Aurora? And then where's like awesome restaurants you wouldn't know about otherwise. The local ones that are kind of hidden gems of the neighborhood." So they told me that, oh, people love to talk about where they grew up. So oh, you got to try this, you got to try this. There's great places to hang out with kids. And then I went to my other clients who were moving to Aurora. I said, "Hey, I talked to these other people and they grew up there. Here's some great spots. Once you guys move in, you got to check these out." And they were so grateful. Like, "Thank you so much. That was awesome." But it was really neat to like be able to pull on everyone's, experience and where they grew up and their advice and then pull that together and then just help each other out. It's one of those things that, I wouldn't be able to do that on my own. And so being able to have access to everybody, really helps people feel at home and, gets people connected with and hopefully ultimately changes, their lives and their experience of wherever they're living.
Oh, so beautifully said, because it is that community piece, being able to connect other people, and you might not personally know, but indirectly you can reach out to former clients and being able to connect them and find, okay, these are the great resources that I have for you, because I
Yeah.
believe it's coming together, and it's more like that family unit aspect as well. And I know you're a father, you're a husband, and I know spending time with your family is so important, especially outdoors as well, and it's an integral part of your professional life. But how do you think those experiences really contribute to your effectiveness as a real estate professional?
I'm a big believer nothing in life is wasted. And I actually had that, I would call like a limiting belief or like a lie that I believed that, at one point, like it's too late for me. I can't make a difference anymore. I can't do anything, and I think the hard things and the good things that we've gone through, through our life have really just shaped and I'm able to now leverage and build upon from where I'm at now. And so my mind's racing with all the things, that an example that I could get. But, you think about, like you said, with kids, right? And being Colorado, like I've learned with kids especially, like I thought I could be the same parent to all four of my kids and they would all turn out the same. And that is not true at all. So I think I've really learned a lot of like, you got to adapt and change to what people need, and what works best for them. It's not one size fits all. And I think for, as I started my own business and I've started interacting with so many different clients and personalities and things like that, I enjoy the challenge now of like, I have some clients that they want to talk to me for like 15 seconds on the phone, come to a decision and move on. Others need an hour or two, and so, just little things like that. I think I've learned, because of my experience in my previous job, I was a manager of lots of engineers, different personality types as well.
Yeah.
And growing up with kids, or in the kids and raising them, you just really have to embrace that and let that be okay, that it's not always going to be the same in the way you interact with everybody. And I think people appreciate that. They appreciate that you're willing to kind of tailor how you do things to them, and it makes a big difference.
I think so too. And just the fact that even with all your kids, they're all, I'm sure, different personality types and how you interact with them and what they need. And I used to say this to my parents, I still do, but just even growing up in a household of 3 kids, I was the middle child, and how I perceived my childhood is so
Oh, yeah.
different than how my sister and brother do, and just even our
Right.
dynamics. But I think it's so valuable that you do treat everybody individually, and each experience is going to be different, because I believe, and it sounds like you do too, that everyone is so unique and what their needs are, and just really feeling that out. And that's what makes us even better in our professions, when we are catering to each individual versus a collective and generalization of things, because we're not a generalization. We're all very different in
Right.
every capacity. There might be
Yeah.
similarities, of course, but,
Right.
but at the end of the day,
Yes.
it's everybody needs something a little bit different. And I think it's so valuable what you're providing your clients, and you've had so much success and you continue to have success. I'm really curious, what are your future aspirations and goals, even though you've already accomplished so much, but what do you foresee in the next few years for yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, I really want to continue to just build on where I'm at now, and I think, I my goal is eventually, and I don't want, like I said before, nothing's wasted at this point, and I don't want anything to be wasted in the future too. I want to teach as many people as I can about real estate, the benefits of it, things to think about from a big picture perspective. That's my goal. And then also pass along this to other agents. My goal is to have a team, and multiple agents that I'm working with, that we can just take care of clients even better. That's a big piece of it. But I really, want to continue to invest in real estate so that we can have more freedom to give, and build into the community and build others up. So, I'm trying to focus more on how do we come together and collaborate with others, businesses like I did. I just posted on Instagram today. I got a buddy of mine, he's got a dryer vent cleaning and repair business, you know. So we did a little quick video together, and then we posted it out there, and I just want to continue to help as many people as I can. Like you said, the scarcity mentality, I don't believe in that at all. There's abundance for all of us. And if you're willing to put in the work to get there, it'll happen. And so I think you're just looking for more ways to continue to help demystify and help people, use real estate to be able to really get to their goals in the future and to put themselves in a better position. My ultimate goal through all that is to be able to have every client I work with today, we're talking in 20, 25 years, and then we're like, aren't you so glad that you did this then? And now look what you get to do today because of that, and just being able to share and multiply. I don't ever want to keep it all for myself, and just continue to build and pour into others.
Oh, I love it. You're just speaking my language. It's all about the impact, creating community, building
I love
community,
it.
but making such an impact with everybody that you encounter, whether it's indirectly or directly, I think is so
Mhm.
valuable in everything that you have been able to accomplish and will continue to accomplish. So I so appreciate you being on today, Brian. Where can people find you, find your services? We're going to link everything below, but if you could let us know too.
Well, this has been so much fun. Thank you again for having me on. This is awesome. My website, bryancowdrey.com. That's super easy. You can find me there. I'm on all the socials. So you can find me at Brian Cowdrey, sometimes Brian.Cowdrey, and sometimes real Brian Cowdrey, because somebody took my name and I couldn't get it the same at all of them. And so they didn't actually take it. Their name is also Brian Cowdrey, but I couldn't get to it before them. So yeah, so you can look for me on all the socials. My email, brian@briancowdrey.com. Try to keep that one easy. So yeah, feel free to reach out. My number's out there as well. Feel free to text me. Always happy to talk with anybody and answer any questions.
Perfect. Well, thank you again, Brian. I just so appreciate this conversation. I think it's going to be so valuable for anyone that's looking to get into real estate, or even buying, selling, just having more knowledge base and how they can find that directory of where they're going in that direction. But I so appreciate it. I appreciate the impact you are doing in this world and right here in Colorado as well. But thank you again for
Yes.
coming on today.
Awesome. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Make sure to like, subscribe, comment below. What was the biggest takeaway from Brian today? I'm sure he would love to see that comment, and we'll see you on the next episode.